Robin!
Yes!
I have a surprise for you.
What is it?
You have been a trusty, loyal, and a perfect ally. And you've done everything I've asked you to. Even the things that we don't talk about. Right?
Right.
Okay. So now I gift you the mantle of Robin. The true costume. I'm actually rich now, so I can get you a costume.
Yes!
I was broke, but now I can pay you. So how much do you want an hour?
All depends.
On what?
I'm putting the hard work. And I will be the best Robin I could possibly be.
Better be.
I will, sir. You can count on me.
Okie dokie. Let's do this. Robin.
Yes, Batman.
Your training has been completed.
Really?
Yes. And I have some bad news.
What is it?
I'm retiring Batman and putting it in your hands.
Really?
Are you ready for the complications of being Batman?
I'm ready!
Alright. It is yours now.
Oh, the power!
Now, actually, I'm keeping the actual cow. I'm just doing it for dramatic purposes.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's not very dramatic. Wait. So Batman was Bruce Wayne all along?
Yes.
Dang.
Yeah.
Plot twist!
But I'm keeping the cow. You make your own outfits now. I'm not providing you. It's kind of like you're 18 and I'm kicking you out of the house.
I'll take it that way.
So you're getting kicked. I mean, you're still gonna live in the Wayne Manor, just
make my own suit.
Yeah. Alfred ain't making your shit no more.
I can understand that.
So this is the last thing you're ever gonna get from me.
I can understand that. I understand.
So, hope you're happy with it.
We're good. We're good.
But I'm keeping this. This is
go
my
ahead,
shit. This is my shit.
You are Batman, so go ahead.
My shit's cooler than your shit. So, but I'm gonna go drink cocktails with Selena Kyle. You keep the city safe, alright?
Yes, sir!
Alright. Batman, out this bitch! So fucking tired of this shit.
There goes my hero. There goes my hero.
They say that a hero can save us. I'm not gonna stand here and wait. I'll hold on to the wings of the eagles. Watch as we all fly away.
Got these cards from these people.
Hey! What do you think you're doing?
Looking through this person's wallet.
Drop the wallet.
No.
I'm Batman, you do whatever I say.
You are not Batman. You are a fat guy in a suit.
How dare you say that about me? Drop the wallet.
No.
Or I will punch you.
I'd like to see you try.
Gah!
See? You ain't no tough. Batman would have took that shot. Who the hell are you?
I told you I'm Batman.
You ain't fucking Batman.
What
kind of Batman are you?
That hurt.
What kind of Batman are you?
I told you I am Batman. Now drop the wallet.
You want me to drop the wallet?
Drop the wallet.
Drop the wallet. Here. Get it there.
Go.
What kind of dumbass are you? You should have saw that coming.
Maybe I'm not Batman.
Yeah, maybe you aren't Batman.
I wanted to be better than Batman.
Yeah, go fuck off, Boy Wonder.
Hello guys and welcome back to the channel. Ben is taking over with this Pringles can. And today we have a very special guest in Mr. Shanae. Hello Mr. Shanae. Do you merely adopt the duck? I was molested in it.
That's just uncalled for.
But anyways, hey guys, what's going on? Today we are finally talking about the final Batman movie in the Christopher Nolan trilogy and the final Batman movie. Period. Have a review for every other Batman movie up on the channel, including a ranking of the movies, suits, cars, everything Batman you can think of. It's all ranked in that video. So if you're just now finding us here or watching me here, I have literally just got wrapped up with the entire Batman review series, and this is the end of it. So, Mr. Shanae, welcome back as well for the final Batman review for a while until we get the new Robert Pattinson Batman 2. But last Batman review for a while. Now, we're on to the big boy, the final of the Christopher Nolan trilogy. So, you have the floor, my man. Tell us what you thought of The Dark Knight Rises.
I've had the same opinion on this movie for a long time, and that it's one of those movies where it's almost perfect to me as far as like my enjoyment level. It's not close to a perfect movie by any means, but every time I watch this, I get moments where I fall in love with the character Batman again. I fall in love with the city of Gotham again. I fall in love with the action sequences. I fall in love with the cinematography again. And then there's those moments that remind me why I get frustrated with this movie every single time I watch it. And on this most recent rewatch, I think I found, like, looking at everything once again, I look at Talia as a character and I realize immediately, if you remove her plot twist from the movie completely, it's a significantly better movie.
Oh yeah, for sure.
If you can leave her in as a character, but if you just take out the part where she turns out to be Ra's al Ghul's daughter, significantly better movie.
And Bane's simping.
Bane, yeah. The Bane simping part I don't really care about. But like, just you take out that portion where she turns out to be Ra's al Ghul's daughter, and instantly this movie is amazing, and it's way closer to the Dark Knight of being the best of this series.
Yeah.
Than where it actually.
It's just an unnecessary plot to it. It's not like it's awful. It's just unnecessary.
Yeah, it's forced.
Yeah, you can definitely tell it's forced. Yeah. I mean, but outside of that, I guess let's just get into the pros real quick, because, I mean, I don't have a lot of cons, but I have a lot of mixed opinions on the movie for sure, but definitely going with the pros. I mean, you just got to get the big one out the way. The story, I would say, the story of this movie is pretty good. I mean, it's not even close to The Dark Knight. I would dare say, not even better than Batman Begins, but it's a good story, I think. I think it's a good final chapter. I think it does what it needs to, which is wrap up a trilogy, wrap up all of these characters' arcs. Now, I don't necessarily would say it's done in a great way. It definitely could have been done better, but I would say they do a better job than most trilogies. This ain't a Spider-Man 3 scenario where it's just like, oh my. This is actually a good, handled, proper third movie in this in a trilogy. Which we didn't, at the time, didn't get a lot of movies that finished off a good trilogy.
I do stand by, though, that it's like, for me, if you take out Talia's betrayal or like the changing of side, I would probably like this movie more than Batman Begins.
Yeah.
And I think that's really the one piece of this movie that kind of holds me back from loving it more.
Yeah.
It's just that kind of flawed moment.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, with the pros real quick. Of course, in this one, I would say in this movie more than most, this actually feels like a Batman movie, Like, I would say since Batman Begins, this actually feels like a Batman movie. Because, like, let's just be honest, The Dark Knight, Joker steals every scene in that movie. So it's like, Batman is great in that movie, but for sure he gets overshined by his villains in The Dark Knight. In this movie, Bane is kind of like that to some degree, but is like still he's not like exactly like overshadowing Batman. You got your Batman moments that are really cool, I would say. Like, especially when he returns for the first time after being retired for 8 years, you kind of like, oh shit, okay. Like you do kind of get that excitement. You're like, oh fuck yeah, Batman's back. This is cool. So it's like, I mean, there is cool Batman moments in here as well. I don't know, like I said, I do like this movie, and I definitely agree with where it sits on my ranking, right in the middle, because it's not awful, but it's not like the greatest, so it's like comfortably right in the middle. And to me, like I said, it's good. I mean, it's just like it's not my favorite at all out of the Nolan trilogy. It's not a bad movie by any stretch of the means. It's just, to me, it's okay. And if anything, it's kind of disappointing because you come off The Dark Knight and you're like, oh my god, okay, what the fuck you got for me next? It's like, oh, okay, that was good. Like it just, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but it's just like I just was like, okay, this is okay, and it probably explains why I've only seen it like one time, and it's been 10 years since I've seen it. Because it's like, okay, that was good. Like it just, I don't know. But I mean, like I said, I do love Bane in this one. I do like Tom Hardy as Bane, even though yes, his voice is memeable as fuck. His voice is so memeable as fuck. Which it to some degree, it's kind of like, oh, then you're not really intimidated by him because you can literally make fun of his voice this entire movie. But again, that's not necessarily Bane himself as an issue. That's just how things are. I mean, hell, people make fun of Batman all the time for his voice, so it's like that's just how things are. People get memed. But no, I do like Bane, and I think Bane was a good choice for this trilogy. I mean, I think out of all the villains that you could have picked to be like, yeah, we're ending a Christopher Nolan trilogy, I think Bane was a good choice, honestly. And plus, I like the grounded realism of Bane in this movie. He actually is scary and he is intimidating, even though he is literally just he doesn't have any like the Bane from the comics. He's all souped up on fucking venom, and like that's what kind of makes him Bane. Where in this one, it's like no, he's just a dude that's just got a few screws loose and he's really fucking buff. That's it. Like there's no superpowers behind him. There's no nothing. He's just a really strong dude, and it's like, fuck. Like I could probably be Bane. Just give me like 5 years of just constant training and I could be Bane if I wanted to. Like that's just kind of like, damn, there really could be a Bane out there if you really had it. So, but I like Tom Hardy as Bane in this one. I mean, other than that, it's just like I said, I like everything in this movie. I mean, it's nothing terrible other than, I don't like Talia al Ghul. I don't like that. I think that was a rushed, very unnecessary twist. I think if you pull that out there, this could have been a very good, great finale. Of course, there are some characters in here that I feel like were kind of forced on, especially Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character. I think he's a good character, but I don't know necessarily if it was needed to make him Robin. Like, I think if you would have just been like, hey, this is the new commissioner and this is the new, kind of Jim Gordon of this universe now, I think that would have been better than like, here's Robin. It's like, I don't know. Like, to me, I don't see him as Robin. I just see him as a really good cop. So I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I just don't see him as Robin personally.
That one personally doesn't bother me to any degree. Like, I don't care enough about that specific opinion. Like, whether he's Robin or not doesn't really affect my opinion on the movie too much. I feel like if he's Robin, cool. I mean, it was more just what bothered me after seeing this for the first time was knowing that nothing else was going to come from it as far as the series is over. Like you tease, the future of Gotham being clear again, and then you tease Robin, and then it's just kind of over.
Yeah.
You're always kind of left with, oh, I like Joseph Gordon-Levitt, but like, are they going to actually do anything with him? Like, would he have been down for that? Like, what's the story there? So
yeah,
for me, that bothered me more, teasing it, knowing you weren't going to continue it. That kind of bothered me.
Yeah.
But with him being Robin, that really didn't bother me much.
Yeah. I did like Alfred a lot in this movie. I would say Alfred is probably my favorite character in this movie. He's definitely my favorite in the Nolan trilogy. Like if I had to pick an Alfred that I liked watching, I preferred this Alfred because he was a lot more real, like in the other ones, yes, he was real, but in this one you could tell he was just like, he was like the smartest character out of everybody. He's telling exactly what Bruce needs to do, and he's just like, I don't want to hear you. Like acting like a little emo teen boy. But it's like, I don't know, I liked Alfred a lot in this movie. I thought he did a really good job, especially those scenes, like the scene where they have on the stairwell, and he's like telling him about the letter and shit. You can just feel the fucking emotional weight that Michael Caine put into his performance as Alfred. I don't know, I thought it was a really good Alfred this time around. I mean, he's always been good. I mean, I think arguably he is the best Alfred we've had, if not the best, for sure.
Yeah, I think he's my favorite Alfred.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just give it up to the Alfred from the Tim Burton universe because I grew up with that one. I saw that Alfred first before I did the Nolan trilogy. So in my head, when I think of Alfred, I think of him. But no, I love Michael Caine's Alfred. I hope now that we've seen Robert Pattinson's Batman, I hope eventually down the line in a sequel or wherever that what's his name? What's the dude that played
Andy
Alfred?
Serkis.
Andy Serkis, thank you. I hope Andy Serkis can kind of get into those Alfred shoes a little more than he did in the Batman. But I mean, like I loved Alfred. I liked I actually even though I said it in my other Nolan reviews, I actually didn't mind Bale as Batman in this one. I don't know if it's because we didn't see him in the costume that much or what, but I didn't actually mind him here. Like in the other ones, I never had an issue with, but it was just like that fucking voice. I never can like get into the voice. And this one wasn't that bad to me. I don't know if it's just because I've gotten used to it now for 2 movies or what, but I'm just like, it's not that bad actually. I don't know. In this one, it's not that bad at least. That's the thing I noticed throughout this movie. It's actually pretty consistent and pretty smart until you get to the third act. I think the third act, when the movie starts to really kind of show its pants a little bit and really has to crumble. It's like, okay, you were actually doing some smart things, and then you get to like the ending, the climax. And it's like, okay, you're really starting to lose yourself here. You're really starting to like kind of, cut some corners, be a little sloppy. Like, for instance, we kept making fun of it when we kept watching it, but the whole fucking time bomb thing, like, come on. Like, come on. It's like 3 minutes of the movie have gone by, but the time is still at 5 minutes. It's like, how is that possible? I don't understand that. And then, of course, the fucking other part we made fun of, the Talia death scene. I think that's one of the dumbest scenes in cinematic history. Like, literally just... Ugh. And the fact that they stand there while she goes on this big spew about this whole thing.
Yeah, there's a
fucking bomb. There's a fucking bomb in the back of the bus. It's like, that's about to detonate in like 2 minutes, and you're just standing here listening to her spew her mouth off. Like, what the fuck? Like, moments like that, it's infuriating, because it's like, oh, there's some great ass fucking scenes in this movie, and then there's scenes like that, and it's like, what the fuck, guys? Because like you said, immediately right after that, we get one of the best moments and best lines in the whole entire Dark Knight trilogy, when he goes back to the whole scene we saw in Batman Begins with Jim Gordon putting the coat over a young boy and all that.
It can be anyone, even a man doing something as simple and reassuring as putting a coat around a young boy's shoulders to let him know the world hadn't ended.
That comes literally right after. Like, that's right after one of the dumbest scenes in this entire franchise. And then it comes to one of the best scenes of this entire franchise. So it's like, how the fuck is that possible? Like, how do you have a really frustrating, dumb scene and then a really good scene right after that? It's like, I don't understand that.
Like I said, once again, it stems back to the idea that my really only major flaw with this movie is Talia's betrayal, I'll call it. If you take that out of it, this movie gets 10 times better.
Yeah.
I mean, every single section of the movie, like her story with her betraying ruins the movies for me.
Yeah. Because it's just unnecessary. To me, I just feel like it's unnecessary. Mm-hmm. Especially because you had such a great villain in Bane, and it could have been just a big old-fashioned hoedown, throwdown with him and Batman, and you could have ended it off like that. But then you decided to add this little plot twist. It's like, okay. And then the fact that Bane, your big, muscular, scary, intimidating dude of the movie, just gets killed by getting gunned down. he just gets pew, pew, pew. It's like, oh, okay.
I mean, that didn't really bother me, though, because, like, Batman's big thing is he doesn't kill people. We joke about that in all the other videos, but for me, it kind of made sense that Catwoman killed him with the fucking, tank-like rifle out of the motorcycle. Personally, that didn't bother me at all. Like I said, just because of the fact that Batman typically doesn't kill people. So
yeah, he did die. He did die in the friend zone, though. Like, straight up.
Yeah,
straight up died. Man's died while in the friend zone. That has to hurt. That's why he was shedding tears and shit. I was like, no, I do. I think I mentioned this a little bit when we were watching it. I think no matter what, if this movie would have came out and it was a 10 out of 10 perfect, or if it was a 2 out of 10 awful, I think no matter what, this movie was always going to be under the Dark Knight shadow. Unfortunately, I just, again, it's not their fault. It's just unfortunately how it is. You go back to like the original Star Wars trilogy. Even though Return of the Jedi is fucking amazing and it's awesome, it's always going to be in the shadow of Empire. That's just how it is. And it's the same thing with this movie. This is a good movie, but it gets just it's like having it's literally like the last child of a fucking like it's like the last kid of a middle child. It's like it's always just going to get kind of like, oh well, it's underneath the shadow of the Dark Knight. So everybody kind of just, no matter what, it was always going to get either not necessarily shat on, but it was always just going to get critiqued. It's like, oh, it's not the Dark Knight, and it's like, yeah, but it's that comparison. Like that goes back to what we said in the Dark Knight. It's just like when you compare something to something like a Dark Knight, it's 9 times out of 10, every movie you compare to the Dark Knight, it's just going to fall flat, no matter what. Even if this movie was great, it's just always going to be like, yeah, this is great, but it ain't Dark Knight. And it's like, yeah, but it's not trying to be. A, and B, you can't compare yourself to that, you know? You can't compare. It's like comparing you to fucking Zac Efron. It's just like, what? There's no way. There's no way that comparison's going to be made. So it's like, yeah, this is a good movie. I do like this movie. But it's just, unfortunately, every time you watch this movie and you hear the reception or you hear people talk about it, it's always like, it's always underneath the shadow of the Dark Knight. And it's unfortunate, I guess. Because I remember when this movie came out. I don't know if you do, but I remember when this movie came out back in 2011, I think, 2012. Everybody was just disappointed. It was like, it's disappointing, one of the worst finales to a trilogy, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, a lot of it was because their expectations was up to here. People's expectations were, they want the Dark Knight or better. And it's like, you can't get that. You can't get that. I mean, that's just a disappointment right there. You can't get that. I mean, if anything, what do you remember when you first watched this movie? Like, what was your reaction coming off of like the Dark Knight, going into the Dark Knight Rises?
I was still pretty young, and I remember just loving this movie when it first came out. I mean, it came out when I was 12. Like, this was another superhero movie early in my childhood that just it was fun to watch for me. You know, I wouldn't say that it's my true opinion just because I feel like I was too young to make a true educated opinion on this movie's quality. But I mean, at the time, my opinion was this was one of my favorite movies in existence, just because that's how every movie was when I saw it for the first time.
Yeah.
It was just, you see a movie when you're 11 or 12, it's like, dang, this is so cool. And like, you go out and you pretend you're Bane, you pretend you're Batman. It's like, you go and live that, you know?
Yeah.
But I mean, I think as you get older, you start to get to look at things with a different lens. And, you know, I look at this movie with a lot of fond memories, and I still really love this movie in a lot of ways. And, you know, it's definitely hard to see that one moment with her and then be like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little raw. I mean, I am curious, in your opinion, would you say that this was a great way to end off a trilogy? Like, would you say this movie ended off this trilogy perfectly, or would you say it kind of was it could have been better?
I would say it ended it correctly, is one way I would put it. Just because they ended the story, which I think is important. You should, with trilogies, leaving it too open-ended is frustrating, and I think it's smart to just kind of end the story with Bruce Wayne and Selena Kyle at their dinner table.
Oh yeah, I love that. I love how they ended it. Yeah,
that ending was beautiful. I think they wrapped up, Gotham's back to normal. There's no villains, blah blah blah. They kind of tease a little bit of like maybe the next superhero with Robin joining the world. They kind of tease there a little bit. I think in general, this was the correct way to end it.
Yeah.
As far as, with it up to the standard of the other two, once again, I hate to repeat myself, but with adding that little betrayal in there, it kind of sours the ending of this really immaculate trilogy.
Yeah. Now, would you say this is your favorite superhero trilogy of all time, or would you say that's a kind of a?
I mean, of trilogies, I would say probably yes.
Yeah.
Just because, there's not really that many superhero trilogies that I've seen, like true trilogies. I wouldn't count anything in Marvel as like a full trilogy. Like, there's kind of the Iron Man trilogy, but
Captain America trilogy.
Captain America trilogy, sort of. It's just those all kind of to me feel like Marvel.
Yeah.
Instead of this individual superhero, or this is just Batman. And the only other example personally I can think of is the old school Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy.
Yeah.
And that's probably my close second. I think the only reason I have this one above Sam Raimi's trilogy is really it comes down to Spider-Man 3 felt like the not correct way to end that trilogy.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And this one feels like the correct way to end the trilogy.
Yeah.
I mean, as flawed as it was, they're both flawed endings. I still feel like this was more correct
Oh
ending
yeah.
closing out their story. But if you put them up 1-to-1, I love Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man Batman Begins a fuck ton. Both
Oh
of
yeah.
those are some of my favorite superhero movies of all time.
Yeah.
You put the second one up there. Spider-Man 2 is probably one of the best superhero movies of all time.
Oh yeah.
You'd probably say it's in the top 5 still to this day. And
Hmm.
guess what? Dark Knight is also in that top 5
Oh
and
yeah.
probably not that far ahead or that far behind Spider-Man 2 depending on
Yeah.
your own opinions. And then you get to that third movie and it's like I love a lot of aspects of both, but
Yeah.
like I said, I think for me, I'd say this one edges out just a little bit just because it feels correct in
Yeah.
its ending.
There's not any
in
like
some ways.
major flaws other than the plot twist. Like with
Yes.
Spider-Man 3, you could pick that movie apart, which I did. I mean, you got the Sandman
yeah.
stuff,
It's
Venom stuff, you know, there's all kinds of problems. With this one, there's really only one major problem that everyone I think universally can agree on is the unnecessary twist. The unnecessary
and
Italian
it was
twist.
kind of like you were saying. You mentioned in the movie like that people talked about this movie being split into 2 movies.
Yeah.
Spider-Man 3 should have been 2 different movies.
Oh,
This
yeah.
one didn't have to be 2 movies. I
Yeah.
felt like the long movie worked fine. You know, that was never the issue we had with this movie. You
Yeah.
know?
I am curious though, because we basically have seen all the you haven't seen all of the Batmans, but I'm curious after watching this trilogy, which this trilogy in itself is in comic book history, and on top of it, it's already like what 10, 12 years old, this whole entire trilogy. Seeing how trilogies and comic book movies kind of wrapped up back in the day compared to what we're getting now with like Matt Reeves' The Batman and other comic book movies, can you kind of still see the like the can you still kind of see the appeal that these movies have kind of still transitioned today, or does it kind of feel different, you know, where it's like Dark Knight Rises came out in 2012, literally the exact same year the Avengers did, and here we are 10 years later. Can you see the difference that these movies had on comic books, or is it still kind of feel the same?
I'd say these movies are kind of standalone. I think
Yeah.
that's mainly because Christopher Nolan wasn't really tied to like an outside storyline, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. Like with Marvel movies, they're all connected to the Marvel Universe storyline.
Yeah.
It's like they have to stick within certain parameters so that they can hint and tease at the next movie that comes out. I mean, we
Yeah.
had that with Spider-Man No Way Home. We've had that with all the other previous movies. They have to stay within their parameters. Where this was a brilliant director coming in and working with Warner Brothers and being like, hey, I want to make a kick-ass Batman movie,
Yeah.
let me do it. You know, so I feel like this trilogy will always be very standalone and it will always be different because there's not really much else that's like this trilogy
Yeah.
at all today. You know, and like I said, I loved that the Batman that just came out recently.
Yeah.
I think I give it really high reviews. Like I don't have any issues with it at all. And I think it has the potential if it with the trilogy to probably be better than this one in its own way.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't want to compare them because I'll probably love both equally in their own ways for different reasons. So I'm excited for the future of, you know, DC, and I think they're going on a track that I'm very much in support of. And I've said to you for the last, I don't know, when did Endgame come out?
Endgame came out in 2019.
I've said to you since 2019, I don't care about what's going on in the Marvel universe anymore.
Other than Spider-Man.
Endgame was the other than Spider-Man. That was the one exception. But like after Endgame, I told you, like I was like, well, like I'm kind of done. Like I was like, this was the end for me. That was the end of the storyline. That was my last kind of movie in my teens. It was like, okay, I'm ready to move on and like call that storyline an end.
Yeah.
You know, I was excited for Spider-Man because, you know who was coming back, or
Yeah.
the trio of them were coming back.
Yeah.
But like besides that, like I'm still kind of done with Marvel. Like I don't really need to watch any of the shows. I don't care too much about the big storyline that's going on with Multiverse of Madness or the other people that are coming out.
Yeah.
And then I watched the Batman that just came out, and I hear about their shows that they're releasing. I'm like, these sound really cool, and they sound different, and they're gonna stick to that same kind of world that the Batman just established, and I'm really excited going forward for
Yeah.
them. I think they have a lot of potential to do some great things.
Now I'm curious because you've only seen the Nolan trilogy, the new Batman, and then Batman and Robin, right? Out of all the Batman movies that have came out, you've only seen those.
And then I've seen the Adam West one,
The Adam West
the
one. I don't count
old
Batman v
one.
Superman or like Justice League movies that Batman was a part of because
No,
those aren't Batman movies in my opinion.
no. And then I've seen like parts of the Michael Caine one,
So I'm
the
curious,
Michael
could
Keaton
you
ones.
could you give us a ranking of the Batman movies that you've seen?
I probably couldn't. I
Yeah.
probably couldn't, to
Do
be
you at least know what
honest.
your
I
favorite Batman
just
movie is?
I'm not ready to say that I like the Batman versus the Dark Knight yet.
Yeah.
It's very close right now.
Yeah.
I think the only way the Batman goes above the Dark Knight for me, and they are my number one and number two. I don't
Yeah.
necessarily have them in any particular order at this
They just
moment.
keep flip flopping.
They flip flop every single day.
Yeah.
And I think the only way the Batman goes above the Dark Knight is if the Batman 2 is good. If
Yeah.
it's good, then the Batman will be instantly my new favorite superhero movie.
Yeah.
Or the Batman 2 overtakes both of them, which is a
Yeah.
real possibility.
I just was curious now since we've had a while now since for the Batman to sit and process if it's beaten that number
I
one or if
still
it's still
can't.
still can't decide.
They're internally they're tied for me. I can't really give you a judgment.
Yeah. Now I would say who. I mean, this is probably an easy answer for sure. But who would you say is your favorite villain out of this trilogy, Dark Knight trilogy? Would it have to go to Joker, or would it maybe be?
I mean, I think it's probably Joker, but Bane isn't that far behind for me.
Yeah.
I did really like Bane. I thought he was scary, like you were saying. He's a very realistic villain. He was significantly stronger than Batman
Yeah.
without being like a super villain, if you know
Yeah.
what I mean.
Yeah.
Like he wasn't
Wasn't
like
juiced up
it
on
still
some venom or whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was still grounded within the Dark Knight trilogy's
Yeah.
universe. And then honestly, I'd say overall, Crane, Scarecrow, and Bane are pretty close seconds for me, but
Yeah.
Joker's probably still my number one.
Yeah, I can understand. For me, if I had to do the villains of this trilogy, it would probably have to go. I like Scarecrow just because of the horror vibes that they give him. Number 2 would be the Joker. 3 would be Bane. 4, would you call? Would you call? I guess Talia would be quote unquote a villain, even though she's not like the big baddie of Dark Knight Rises that's supposed to belong to Bane. So I guess I would call her technically the villain. And I'd probably have to go. My least favorite out of this whole trilogy was probably Ra's al Ghul himself from the first one. Even though he's not bad or anything, there's just other villains to me that are more interesting than Ra's al Ghul himself. I would say.
Official villains, I'd probably say he's my least favorite.
Yeah.
But I think technically speaking, Talia is the villain, so she would be my least favorite.
Yeah.
So I'd say she's in last place, Ra's al Ghul right in front of her, and then the other three I said.
Now I'm curious too, because this is supposed to wrap up a trilogy and stuff. As a fan, were you satisfied, or did you have things because you were into these movies? Did you have a certain way you wanted to end things, or did you think they told a perfect like version for you of the ending? Because everybody has their own endings in their head that they like to like. Oh, I would like for things to go this way or that way. So if you could like think about how you felt before you watched this, was there a certain way you wanted things to end, or did they end pretty much exactly how you wanted it to?
I mean, kind of like I mentioned earlier, I was pretty young when I watched this for the first time, so to make like a full judgment on how they should have done things, like I also didn't know anything about comic books at this time. I was not really into the world of the comic book superheroes. Like my knowledge of Batman was the previous two Batmans that had just come out, and also some of the older movies. Like I knew he was a superhero, and then I kind of watched like Teen Titans every once in a while. So like I didn't really have an opinion on how it should have ended at the time. Like really when it came out, I was content with the ending. I was like, okay, that was cool. I think the one thing I was a little frustrated with when I was 12 was the fact that they teased Robin, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Like, okay, you're teasing him, and then you're not gonna do anything. I mean, now I stand by this. I'm kind of in the same opinion though, where I don't necessarily think I would have changed anything
Hmm.
besides, of course, Talia. But like looking back at like if you ignore her specifically, I loved the ending
Yeah.
with just they kind of call back to the beginning part of the movie. They call back with Gordon and him in the police station with putting the coat back on. Like there's a lot of like really clean wrap ups to the story.
Yeah.
Gordon finally finds out after being the most loyal friend possible to Batman. Like it was very satisfying the way they close things out. And in that regard, I wouldn't change anything.
Now I'm trying to. I mean, I was trying to figure out through the movie, but it's like, so are they implying that Robin figured out he was Batman because he saw him as Bruce Wayne as a child, and kind of like they never explained that. I'm like, that's kind of a weird answer. It's like, I know you're Batman
I
because I saw you as Bruce Wayne, and I saw like the same kind of like sadness
they
behind your eyes.
definitely
So it's like, that was, how the fuck did you figure that out?
I mean, they definitely skipped over that, but I feel like there's a lot of information that could have led him to that same conclusion.
Could
I
be.
mean, Batman and Bruce Wayne disappearing at the same time, like
I think
coincidence?
everybody could have figured that
Probably
out.
not. Mysterious man disappears for years. Batman has all this fucking technology that's probably costing millions. Who's like the only young white rich person in Gotham that probably could have done it that seems mysterious? Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of ways he could have figured out, and I'm guessing, there was that part of him that saw him when he was at a young age where he's like, you know what, like I can tell this guy has something going on deeper down, like he's putting up the face. I'm sure that was part of it, because
Yeah.
there's like the term that's called like empaths, where like you can feel people's emotions, and
Yeah.
I'm sure there was a part of that helped him, but I think there was plenty of other things hinting at Bruce Wayne being Batman.
Yeah. No, I just was like, when I was trying to watch it and he's explaining himself, I'm like, are you fucking like Brainiac genius? Like, how the fuck did you figure that shit? Like, I looked at you
They
and I figured it
definitely
out.
brushed over it. They brushed over it for sure.
I'm like, the fuck? And then, I guess we haven't really mentioned Catwoman. It's like, now seeing a new version of Catwoman in the Batman, going back to what you grew up with Catwoman, would you say that she's still a good Catwoman, or is she kind of like a just okay kind of Catwoman? Like, what would you say you give Catwoman something?
I still like her as a Catwoman. I think
Yeah.
they're just two different interpretations. I
Yeah.
still like her as a Catwoman though. I have no issues with her.
Yeah, I mean, again, I know the source material and stuff like that. So to me, I think if anything, she played a safe Catwoman. She didn't do anything crazy. It wasn't anything like, well, that's an interesting. It was just, like I said before, kind of just a safe Catwoman. It's like, she's a burglar. She'll help Batman here and there. They have like a flirty thing going on, but that's really it. It's like, okay. I mean, like, she wasn't bad. Definitely, because you haven't seen Batman Returns, the original Catwoman, Michelle Pfeiffer. Everybody just loves her as Catwoman. So it's like, when you're jumping off that and you're literally the next adaptation of Catwoman right after Michelle Pfeiffer, it's kind of like, what do you do? Because if you have a character that's already been portrayed and everybody loves, it's kind of like, well, I'll just play it safe. So I mean, I feel like that's what it was. And I don't necessarily blame Anne Hathaway for that. I think it's more of the writers. They didn't want to do anything crazy with Catwoman. It's like, let's just do a safe Catwoman. That's, to me, that's what she feels like. She just feels kind of safe. It's like, okay, you're just a safe Catwoman. Nothing terrible about you. It's not like your acting's bad or your story's bad or anything. It's just kind of like okay, that's Catwoman. Like, that's just how I think about it. And I'm also curious too, after this, I'm curious because they did, like you said, they definitely left things open for things to go. If they actually did have plans to continue this, even though this was a trilogy, if they had plans to continue this, whether it's in spin-offs or in comic books or whatever, just because they do leave a lot of things open where it's like, I wouldn't be opposed of like a Robin solo movie about this Robin in the Nolan universe, or if down the road, Bruce and Selena have a kid, which end up being Huntress in the comics. If they do something with that, it's just like they left a lot of things where it's like possibilities. But I'm curious if they will ever act on those, especially now we're in the superhero craze. If they'll ever like go back to this trilogy and try to
No.
continue or anything. I don't want them to, but I'm just curious if they ever will.
They won't. It's not even whether or not I want them to. It's just I think Christopher Nolan's made it pretty clear, like he doesn't plan to continue this at all. Like that's not his passion in the world, So
Yeah.
it's over, which I'm fine with.
Oh yeah, no, I'm fine with it. I'm just curious, because we have all this. I mean, anything's possible. I will say that. I'm not going to necessarily completely. Anything's possible. Who would have thought we would ever get Tobey Maguire back after however many years? So I mean, anything's possible, but I doubt it. I mean, I really do. I mean, unless they just completely do it without him acknowledging and just be like, yeah, we're going to play with your toys, even though this is your sandbox. But I doubt that they will, just because I think at this point Christopher Nolan has done a lot for WB outside of the Batman movies, and they have kind of like a tight relationship going on. So I don't think they would ever like just backstab him like that and just like, yeah, we're gonna play with your Batman without you knowing. I don't think they'd ever do that. But I mean, no, I mean, like I said, I do. I if anything, out of all the Batman movies we've gotten, because you had the two Michael Keatons, which was supposed to be a trilogy, but then they fucked it up. And then you had Batman Forever and then Robin, which were kind of like supposed to be starting up new franchises and they never get off the ground. It's kind of nice to actually have a concrete, good Batman trilogy that actually finishes the story and wraps up the story. And I hope the Matt Reeves trilogy does the exact same thing. I hope a Snyder thing doesn't happen where him and WB have a fallout or whatever the fuck. I hope that doesn't happen because I hope Matt Reeves actually gets to do his trilogy and not just like, oh well this is popular now, so let's put our fingers in it and shit. So I hope after this movie and we get these little spin-off shows and blah blah blah, I hope actually he can finish his trilogy, because I like so far where we're going off with the Matt Reeves trilogy. So I guess if anything, it's nice to actually have a wrap up of a trilogy that's actually not terrible. Actually not terrible, especially at the time, because this was kind of when the MCU was kicking off. This was in the era where it's like comic book movies are starting to get off the ground, but they're not necessarily like fuck yeah like they are today. So, but no, I like The Dark Knight Rises just fine. I mean, I don't hate it. It's not terrible. It's just, to me, it's okay. So, I mean, if you had to give a rating system, what would you give it? I mean, I don't do ratings, but I know you do ratings. So,
I mean, I like to, but I don't know. That's kind of hard. It's
because my rating,
I gave
I'm
Dark Knight like a 9.
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah,
I'd probably.
I think we both gave Dark Knight a 9.
Batman Begins. I'd probably give like an 8.25 to an 8.5. I'd probably give this one like a 7.5.
See, actually, hey, we're not that far off. I was gonna give it a 7.
I think it's above. Like for me, 7 is the benchmark for something I start to rewatch frequently. Yeah. As far as my rating scale, like after I rank something 7 or higher, it's something that I do plan on going back to and rewatching and enjoying again.
Yeah.
So it's definitely above that point by a certain degree. So I'd probably give it a 7.5 at a minimum.
Yeah.
Maybe an 8.
Yeah, I was gonna give it a 7. I'm like, I wonder if I'm gonna be way lower than his or not. Because I was like, I'm gonna give it a 7, and then you're like 7.0. I'm like, oh. We're not that far off, actually. Okay. So, like I said, I don't necessarily do ratings, but when I do, it's like, yeah. I think, if I remember correctly, I think we both gave Batman Begins around an 8. And then you gave Dark Knight a 9.
8.25, 8.
Yeah, I remember you gave Dark Knight a 9. I gave Dark Knight 8.5. And then, of course, this movie now I gave a 7. You gave a 7.5. So, not far off, actually, on our ratings, which is pretty funny. And I think Did you give the Batman 10 out of 10, or what did you give? I can't remember what you gave the Batman when we talked.
I haven't officially rated it. I need time.
I need time.
I refuse to rate it at the moment.
Maybe when you see it a second time.
Movie.
Yeah.
That's what this. It's not even seeing it the second time. It's seeing the second movie. To be honest, that's when I will make my decision.
Understandable. Maybe I
need to know where they're taking it.
Yeah. That's understandable. So, do you have any more things you'd like to off to The Dark Knight Rises?
Nope.
No?
That's all for me.
All right. Well, thank you for being on for the Nolan trilogy and the Batman stuff. I don't know what future franchises we'll do, but hopefully I'm sure we'll do some future franchises together. I would say it's been fun so far doing the Batman. It's been fun. Like I said, I don't know any. I'd have to really look and see what like franchises and shit are coming out that we could do together. But I mean, I'm sure we'll be back on for something, franchisey.
I've got 2 of them for sure.
Oh, which one are those? I'm curious.
Oh well, no, we'll keep it secret for now.
We're doing secrets. But yeah, so thank you for being on for the Batman trilogy and the Batman. And like I said, I'm sure we'll be on for franchises in the future. So thanks for being on. And
Hit the subscribe button. We will need it.
bye, guys.